And meanwhile, President Trump is weighing military action in Iran. He's previously called the killing of protesters a red line. Here's the president yesterday on that.
On Iran, have they crossed your red line?
And meanwhile, President Trump is weighing military action in Iran. He's previously called the killing of protesters a red line. Here's the president yesterday on that.
On Iran, have they crossed your red line yet to trigger a response?
Well, no, they're starting to, it looks like, and there seem to be some people killed that aren't supposed to be killed. These are violent, if you call them leaders, I don't know if they're leaders or just they rule through violence. But we're looking at it very seriously. The military is looking at it, and we're looking at some very strong options. We'll make a determination.
And Alex Gray, former NSC Chief of Staff under President Trump, joins me now. And I just told Bill I could talk to you for hours, but we'll make the most of the time that we have right now. Can you size up for us this Iranian protest and how it may or may not differ from ones in the most recent past?
Well, thanks, Dana. I think, first of all, we have to note that a red line under Donald Trump means something very different than a red line under Barack Obama. And I think the Iranian regime obviously knows that. Midnight Hammer, Nicolas Maduro, Soleimani, Baghdadi, they understand that when President Trump talks about red lines, that has a very powerful deterrent effect. And I think we're going to see that. We're already seeing that play out in that this regime, frankly, has been a lot more judicious in how they've approached these protests than they have in the recent past, to the point of even insultingly offering Iranians $7 a month if they'll leave the streets. So I think we're already seeing the regime having second thoughts or thinking through a little bit more how they're engaging, because they know that the United States is willing to engage in a way that we certainly haven't over the last two major protests.
One of the things that I think is significant and is different is that one of the protests that was sparked before was because a young woman was killed after she was found to be not wearing her hijab. And that caused a lot of problems. This one is more about economics and the currency that is collapsing. How significant is it that Iran called and asking to negotiate with President Trump over the weekend? And second question, what's there to negotiate?
Well, there's nothing to negotiate. It's significant, Dana, only in the sense that I think it shows the extraordinary weakness of the regime, and that the regime is in the weakest position since 2009, when they came into the streets, and unfortunately the United States under President Obama was not there for the protesters. But I think what we're seeing here is a confluence of multiple things. There's the illegitimacy of the regime itself, which is shown through its repression and its brutality over 45 years, that it's lost its right to govern. It's losing its mandate, and that's exacerbated by the fact that it has failed miserably to raise the standards of living of Iranians, and in fact has taken Iranians backwards from where they were in 1979 when the Islamic Revolution occurred. So what you're seeing, I think, is a total loss of their mandate to have any legitimacy to be the ruling government of the people of Iran.
I think another thing that's different is that there is access to the internet. So they can see how the other Middle Eastern countries are modernizing. They are good people, smart people. They would love the chance to participate and have an opportunity to do that. So that is different. At the same time, let's go to another part of the world, and that is Cuba. Much dependent on Venezuelan oil, or at least the proceeds from it. President Trump yesterday posted this: "There will be no more oil or money going to Cuba. Zero. I strongly suggest they make a deal before it is too late." The Cuban president responded, saying that Cuba is a free, independent, and sovereign nation. No one dictates what we do. Cuba does not aggress. It is aggressed upon by the U.S. for 66 years, and it does not threaten. It prepares ready to defend the homeland to the last drop of blood. I wanted to get your take on this because the other thing that's happening in Cuba that's different from years past is that they also are in a very terrible financial position. Could there be a change there this year?
Well, Dana, they are in the worst financial position they've been in since the Soviet Union collapsed, and then stopped being able to supply them with resources and with cash to keep the regime afloat. This is a unique confluence of events where President Trump's decisive action in Venezuela and his decision to say, we will not allow outside powers like China, Russia, and Iran to meddle in the hemisphere, all three of whom have been propping up the Cuban regime for decades. You take all of that together, together, and I think the Cuban regime could very well be on its last legs.
Alex Gray, please don't be a stranger. Loved having you on the show. Thank you.
Thanks, Dana.